Triple Review. Conquer the LSAT through spaced repetition and analysis while building motivation. Welcome to Triple Review's series on LSAT fundamentals. I'm Jake Feldman, and today we're going to be talking about syllogism and enthymeme. If you saw our first video on the fundamentals of argumentation, you'll remember that an argument is a series of statements designed to convince an audience of an opinion, hypothesis, or prediction of the narrator. You'll also remember that the argument must contain these three things in order to be valid. A conclusion, which we know is the idea that we're trying to convince our audience of. A minor premise, which is a fact we know about the subject of the conclusion. And a major premise, which is a rule or principle we know that relates to the predicate of the conclusion. And critically, the minor and major premises must overlap to complete the circuit and create validity. This kind of argument is what Aristotle called a syllogism, one in which the form is valid. A fact is presented, a principle regarding that fact is presented, and those together allow the speaker to present their conclusion, connecting everything together. Here you can see the classic example of a syllogism. Its source is hotly debated. Some believe this was created by Aristotle himself, though others contend it's a far more modern example, as young as perhaps the mid-19th century. In any case, it goes like this. Socrates is a human. All humans are mortal. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. The conclusion is that last phrase, Socrates is mortal, as that is the analysis the narrator, me, has made, based on the fact that Socrates is human and the principle that all humans are mortal. Put into our chart, it looks like this. You can see how the minor premise contains the subject of the conclusion, Socrates. The major premise contains the predicate of the conclusion, are mortal or is mortal, and that the minor and major premises overlap using the concept of being human, a perfect syllogism. You'll notice how I use the word therefore before I stated the conclusion. This word is one of many adverbs that can be used prior to a conclusion. Others are thus, hence, so, consequently, among many. The presence of those types of words, though, are not guaranteed. There are plenty of other ways this argument could be put together, only some of which will use a word like therefore, but still be a syllogism. Here are two examples, with the minor premise, Socrates is a human, placed first. You can see that the first has the indicator therefore before the conclusion, but the second one does not. Here are two more examples, with the major premise, all humans are mortal, first. Notice again, we don't necessarily need those adverbs before the conclusion. It can work using other connective tissue between the phrases. Here's a final set of examples with the conclusion first. In both of these, the adverbs are gone entirely. It would be weird to start an argument with hence or therefore. So as you can see, a syllogism need not be in any specific order or contain any specific connective language. It just needs those three parts and to have those parts connect. So if all arguments have these components, why can the questions on the LSAT be so tricky sometimes? Well, that's because we don't actually communicate in this way in our everyday lives. In discussion, we often leave out portions of our arguments because they're accepted truths that seem so obvious we don't feel we have to say them out loud to be understood. Take our argument about Socrates. If I were to remove the major premise that all humans are mortal, would my argument lose its meaning? Read it. Don't you hear that implied rule that all humans are mortal anyway, simply by reading the two statements that are there? This is what Aristotle called enthymeme. It's an argument that in the course of speech is equally valid because the rules are widely accepted. We all know that all humans are mortal. I don't have to spell it out for you. Here's another. Jake is smart, so Jake must be a great tutor. If we take a moment, we can hear the narrator screaming the implication that smart people make great tutors. Of course, that's what the author's saying, because otherwise, drawing the conclusion that Jake is a great tutor would be nonsensical. The enthymeme could work the other way as well, though it may be slightly more obvious that something is missing here. Jake must be a great tutor, since smart people make great tutors. I never actually said that Jake was smart, but isn't it obvious that I mean that? So why do we care about this on the LSAT? We care because this kind of argumentation is so common that oftentimes we don't even realize we're guilty of it. And the LSAT does care about having all pieces of an argument puzzle present. Enthymemes are not considered valid by the LSAT. So we need to become vigilant about realizing when we have assumed the presence of a premise, because its truth is so obvious to us that we don't realize it isn't stated outright. Sometimes it even sounds silly or redundant to state it, but doing so is a requirement to reach the level of validity on the LSAT. Here are some examples of enthymemes. See if you can spot the part that we are assuming in each. Danny lied, so he can't be trusted. What's missing? Liars can't be trusted. I think that's something most of us would agree about, but it's not a universal truth. It's not the definition of the word liar, so we still need to say it in our argument. Here's another. Drunk driving is wrong, since hurting innocent people is wrong. What's missing here? Though we all recognize the potential dangers of drunk driving, again, this isn't the definition of drunk driving, so we need to say it out loud. Drunk driving hurts innocent people. Last one. Americans will scale back their dreams because they're struggling to succeed in a system characterized by inequality of opportunity. What's missing here? This one's tough. And yes, it really does sound like I'm repeating what was already stated, but take a closer look. The first part of the original is a conclusion that Americans will scale back their dreams. And a minor premise follows that they are struggling. But without a rule, a principle that tells me that under those circumstances, struggling in a system characterized by inequality of opportunity, that people scale back their dreams, I'm left only to guess whether the conclusion follows from that fact. State the rule outright. Now my logic is valid. So these concepts of syllogism and enthymeme should help you to recognize the difference between valid and flawed, between elements of an argument that are stated outright and those that are implied, however obvious they may be. We hope this will help you on your journey toward more confident and efficient analysis and tackling of logical reasoning on the LSAT. Thanks for watching.